Ever watch a cartoon as a kid and later wonder, wait, did that really happen? The 1970s were packed with shows so strange they felt like fever dreams drawn in crayon. Talking blobs, psychic dogs, disco spies animation had absolutely no rules. Somewhere between Saturday morning cereal and creative chaos, the weirdest characters ever imagined came to life. And trust me, by the end of this list you'll realize nostalgia can be a little bit terrifying. Number 19. Bleep the Robot. Josie and the Pussycats in Outer Space, 1972. Picture this. A tiny, squeaky robot that looks like an electric toaster and acts like a hyperactive puppy. That's Bleep the beeping sidekick of Josie and the Pussycats' sci-fi spin-off. When the all-girl rock band accidentally gets launched into deep space, Bleep becomes their metallic mascot, buzzing around alien planets and short-circuiting at the worst possible times. He doesn't speak just beeps and flashes, but somehow steals the spotlight from the entire human cast. Hanna-Barbera's logic seemed simple. If Scooby-Doo worked, why not a robotic version? Except instead of catching crooks, Bleep mostly caused them. His idea of helping was pressing random buttons on alien control panels, turning every concert into a cosmic disaster. Yet kids adored him. His sound effects became legendary half R2-D2, half Blender meltdown. What makes Bleep so weird isn't just the concept. It's how seriously everyone else takes him. The band treats this malfunctioning machine like a full-blown crew member. He even gets emotional moments beeping sadly when someone's hurt. Bleep proved that in 70s, cartoons' heartwarming chaos came in all shapes, even chrome-plated ones. Number 18. Mighty Man and Yuck. Mighty Man and Yuck, 1979. You've seen heroes with secret powers. But have you ever seen a superhero dog whose face is literally a weapon? Meet Yuck, the world's ugliest dog. His face is so horrifying it can melt walls, knock out villains, and sometimes destroy entire buildings. So he wears a little doghouse over his head to protect the public. You read that right, a dog wearing a house as a helmet. His partner is Mighty Man, a billionaire, who can shrink to the size of a toy soldier, proving once again that Hanna-Barbera never met a ridiculous premise it didn't love. Together they fight crime in Los Angeles, turning every mission into a slapstick meltdown. Whenever things go south, Yuck just lifts his doghouse and unleashes chaos. The show's writers clearly knew how absurd it was. Half the comedy comes from everyone screaming the second Yuck peeks out. No one ever explains why his face is so dreadful, just that it's banned from public viewing. It's like a running inside joke that never needed an answer. Mighty Man and Yuck only lasted one season, but it became cult legend among fans of bizarre cartoons. Forget radioactive spiders or magic rings. Nothing beats a dog so ugly. He's basically a biological weapon. Number 17. Mr. Cool. The Fonz and the Happy Days Gang, 1979. Yes, that Fonz. The leather jacket hero of Happy Days somehow ended up in a time-traveling cartoon with a talking dog named Mr. Cool. This wasn't a parody. It was an official spin-off where Henry Winkler voiced himself teaching kids how to stay cool while jumping through centuries with his canine buddy. Mr. Cool was a streetwise mutt with a voice like a tired stand-up comic. He cracked jokes, chased cats through time, and occasionally helped Fonzie fix history. The gang, Fonzie, Richie, Ralph, and a clumsy girl inventor named Cupcake rode a malfunctioning time machine that constantly dumped them in ancient Egypt or the Wild West. But Mr. Cool always stole the scene. His every line oozed misplaced confidence. He called everyone babe and strutted around like he owned the timeline. Watching him flirt with Cleopatra or bark orders at medieval knights was pure madness even by 70s standards. This cartoon is living proof that television executives in that decade were fearless or delirious. It mashed together sitcom charm sci-fi nonsense and a dog with more attitude than common sense. Mr. Cool might not have been bright, but he was unforgettable. After all, who else could call the Fonz boss and get away with it? Number 16. The Thing, Fred and Barney. Meet the Thing, 1979. Before Marvel ruled the box office. The Thing from Fantastic Four was reborn as a teenage boy named Benji Grimm, who could magically transform into a rocky orange hero by smashing together 2 magic rings and shouting, "Thing ring, do your thing." Gone was the gruff, cigar-chomping comic book version. This was Saturday morning, Benji polite, clumsy, and more interested in school dances than cosmic battles. When trouble struck, he'd summon his rocky alter ego and accidentally destroy everything within a 5-mile radius. The tone? Half Scooby-Doo, half accidental demolition derby. Fred Flintstone and Barney Rubble sometimes shared airtime with him, though they never actually met on screen. That's how disconnected it was, a prehistoric duo and a modern teenager from 2 different universes jammed into one cartoon title. What made it legendary was how completely it rewrote a superhero. The Thing went from tragic monster to lovable goofball with no origin, no Fantastic Four, and no logic. Fans were baffled. Critics laughed. Kids? They loved it. Because who needs backstory when you can summon a walking pile of rocks with bling? The Thing's cartoon wasn't heroic. It was delightfully dumb. And that's exactly why it worked. Number 15. Mr. Toots, the Chattanooga Cats, 1970. Every band has that one member who steals the spotlight without meaning to. For the Chattanooga Cats, a groovy animated rock group, it was Mr. Toots, a trumpet-playing feline whose musical talent came with one tiny problem: his solos triggered earthquakes. Mr. Toots was the feline equivalent of a walking natural disaster. Every time he hit a high note, buildings wobbled, cars flipped, and fellow bandmates ducked for cover. His wide grin and half-lidded eyes made him look permanently dazed, like even he couldn't believe the chaos he caused. The show itself was a blend of bubblegum pop and psychedelic nonsense, featuring a band of singing cats touring the country. Mr. Toots rarely spoke, preferring to let his brass do the talking and the trembling. Between songs, the cats solved mysteries and outran jealous rivals. But no matter what happened, you could count on Mr. Toots to blow that trumpet and break the laws of physics. He might not be as famous as Josie and the Pussycats, but he deserves a spot in cartoon history. A cat whose musical talent literally shakes the world? Only the 1970s could think that was a good idea. And honestly, that's why we love it. Number 14. Super President, 1970. Imagine this. The President of the United States fighting crime in a skin-tight costume while juggling world affairs from the Oval Office. That's not satire, that's Super President. Originally created in the late 60s but still airing into the early 70s, this cartoon turned political power into pure superhero absurdity. In this universe, Commander-in-Chief James Norcross doesn't just sign bills. He also turns himself into steel marble or lightning whenever villains threaten America. Between emergency meetings and press briefings, he literally leaps into action from a secret White House command center. His costume? A red, white, and blue unitard with a massive SP on the chest. Subtle. Every episode played out like a patriotic fever dream. One minute he's meeting ambassadors, the next he's punching aliens into orbit. His sidekick Agent Jerry handled the paperwork, while Super President melted through walls in the name of democracy. It's as if someone mixed Captain America with civics class and forgot to check for sanity. Even at the time, critics called it unintentionally hilarious. Yet there's a charm in its straight-faced delivery. No irony, no jokes, just a leader saving the world with the same calm he'd use to balance a budget. Super President wasn't realistic. It was pure idealism wrapped in cartoon logic, and maybe that's exactly why people still remember it. Number 13. Mumbly, the Mumbly Cartoon Show, 1976. If you ever wondered what would happen if a dog detective laughed his way through every crime scene, meet Mumbly, the raspy-voiced mutt, who solved mysteries while sounding like he'd just swallowed a kazoo. Dressed in a trench coat 2 sizes too big and muttering non-stop under his breath, Mumbly was a canine detective with the attention span of a mayfly and the attitude of a beat cop who'd seen too much. His laugh, half snicker, half wheeze, was instantly recognizable, echoing the famous Muttley. From Wacky Races. In fact, Mumbly was basically Muttley with a badge and a day job. Each episode followed Mumbly as he tracked down crooks, using nothing but clumsy luck and sarcastic mumbling. His human boss, Chief Schnooker, was an exasperated wreck, forever shouting, "Mumbly, get back here!" as the detective stumbled into victory by sheer accident. Mumbly never cared about glory or gratitude. He just giggled through explosions, car chases, and general nonsense until the credits rolled. The brilliance of Mumbly wasn't in his detective skills. It was in how proudly he didn't have any. He was the anti-Sherlock Holmes solving crimes by being in the right place at the wrong time. With his gravelly laugh and careless confidence, Mumbly became a cult icon for kids who knew real genius doesn't always bark it, just chuckles its way through life. Number 12. Orbitty, the Jetsons revival, 1979. When the Jetsons came back to television after more than a decade off, the air audiences expected flying cars and futuristic jokes. What they got instead was Orbitty, a fluffy, stretchable alien pet that could change shape and color depending on his mood. Orbitty bounced around like a spring-loaded marshmallow, squealing in gibberish and clinging to George Jetson's leg like a clingy toddler made of silly putty. He wasn't part of the original family lineup, but he quickly became the emotional center of the revival. Kids adored his high-pitched voice and cartoon physics. Adults, on the other hand, couldn't decide if he was cute or deeply unsettling. The animators leaned into his elasticity. Orbitty could twist into knots, morph into tools, or turn into a trampoline. Every gag ended with his squeaky laugh and a quick reset to his fuzzy alien self. No logic, no science, just pure animated chaos. Why add him? Simple. The 70s needed its own mascot. Every show had a cute thing, and Orbitty filled that quota by existing somewhere between pet toy commercial and walking mood ring. He wasn't just weird, he was the physical embodiment of the decade's motto. If it's bright and bouncy, put it on screen. Number 11. Captain Courageous, Yogi's Space Race, 1978. You'd think a name like Captain Courageous meant fearless, but in Hanna-Barbera's Yogi's Space Race, it meant the exact opposite. Captain Courageous was a square-jawed hero terrified of everything. He strutted around in a shiny jumpsuit, struck heroic poses, and then immediately panicked whenever something moved. In a galaxy full of cartoon racers, Yogi Bear, Huckleberry Hound, and even Space Ghost Captain Courageous was the designated coward. Every episode saw him fumble his way through interstellar competitions, bragging about his bravery, while his robot co-pilot quietly saved his skin. The writers had a blast poking fun at traditional hero tropes. Captain Courageous would deliver long speeches about valor and justice, right before hiding behind a space rock. His rocket often malfunctioned because he accidentally hit the wrong button or screamed loud enough to trigger self-destruct. The brilliance of this character was his misplaced ego. He genuinely thought he was leading the charge, while everyone else rolled their eyes. Somehow, by sheer luck, he always finished the race or defeated the villain. Captain Courageous was proof that in the 70s even heroes could be complete disasters, and we loved them for it. Number 10. The Schmoo, the new Schmoo, 1979. Before you ask, yes, the Schmoo is exactly what it sounds like. A white, blobby creature that looks like a bowling pin crossed with a marshmallow. First introduced in Al Cap's Lil Abner comic strip, the Schmoo got its own Hanna-Barbera cartoon, The New Schmoo, and became a mystery-solving detective sidekick. This happy blob could morph into anything. A hammer, a key, even a parachute. He spoke in bouncy gibberish, smiled constantly, and obeyed cartoon physics like a sugar-fueled genie. He also had a habit of turning himself into random objects mid-conversation, usually confusing everyone around him. The Schmoo teamed up with 3 teenage detectives who treated him like a best friend/Swiss Army knife. Need to open a door? Schmoo. Need to escape a villain? Schmoo again. Need to make breakfast? You guessed it? Schmoo. What made him unforgettable wasn't his powers, but his personality. He was endlessly cheerful, almost to the point of existential dread. Even when danger struck, he'd laugh it off and transform into a balloon. It's that weird blend of innocence and chaos that makes the Schmoo such a perfect symbol of 70s animation, adorable, nonsensical, and unstoppable. Number 9. Woody the Motorcycle Elf, The Addams Family, 1973. You know a cartoon's gone off the rails when even the Addams Family needs a side character weirder than Thing. Enter Woody the Motorcycle Elf, a tiny grease-stained mechanic who lived under the family's Gothic car and communicated entirely through sputtering engine noises. He was small, scrappy, and constantly covered in oil. His speech was just revs and honks translated only by Gomez, who somehow understood him perfectly. Woody would crawl out from under the Addams mobile whenever something exploded, which given this family was about every 5 minutes, and fix it using a wrench half his size. In a decade obsessed with funky mascots, Woody was the ultimate wild card. He wasn't spooky, he wasn't magical, and he definitely wasn't necessary. But his weird charm fit right in. Kids loved his high-pitched motor sounds. Adults couldn't decide if he was a gremlin or a hallucination. The writers never explained where he came from or how he joined the Addams household. He was just there forever, tinkering away, laughing like a carburetor having a midlife crisis. Woody's legacy? A reminder that the 70s didn't need logic to create a fan favorite, just an engine, a smile, and enough exhaust to fill the screen. Number 8. Bleep, The Herculoids, 1970. Before there was Baby Yoda, there was Bleep, the gelatinous shape-shifting blob from the Herculoids. Looking like a lump of animated silly putty with googly eyes, Bleep wasn't just a pet. He was part of a prehistoric sci-fi team who lived on the planet Quasar, defending it with laser creatures and caveman logic. Bleep, along with his slightly bigger counterpart Gloop, spoke entirely in their own name. That's right, every line was just Gleep, Gleep. And somehow everyone understood him. He could stretch like rubber form shields, bounce off lasers, and trap enemies in his gooey body, all while squealing like a malfunctioning balloon animal. The Herculoids universe made 0 sense cavemen with ray guns, dragons made of rock, but Bleep was the heart of it all. Children adored him. He was cute, indestructible, and endlessly loyal. In a show filled with explosions and alien warfare, Bleep's charm was pure comic relief. The 70s loved giving audiences things that defied explanation, and Bleep was their mascot for that chaos. A blob who could save the day by accident? That's peak Saturday morning weirdness. Number 7. Cool McCool, Archie's TV Funnies, 1971. Imagine if James Bond forgot his training, misplaced his gadgets, and dressed like he shopped in a detective thrift store. That's Cool McCool, the groovy spy with a handlebar mustache, thick glasses, and 0 coolness whatsoever. Originally a 60s creation that survived into the 70s, Rerun's McCool was the ultimate parody of secret agents. He drove absurd vehicles, fired gadgets that malfunctioned more often than they worked, and constantly caught himself in his own traps. His boss, Number 1, shouted at him every episode while McCool bumbled through cases with unearned confidence. The magic of McCool was his optimism. No matter how many times his jetpack failed or his pants caught fire, he'd flash a goofy grin and say, "Danger is my business." His bright yellow trench coat and nasal voice made him stand out like a walking caution sign for spy training. The segments featured on Archie's TV Funnies gave new life to his misadventures, making kids fall in love with this accident-prone secret agent all over again. McCool wasn't smooth, but he was unforgettable proof that even the worst spies can still save the day if the villains are dumb enough. Number 6. Superstretch and Microwoman, Tarzan and the Super 7, 1978. Move over Fantastic Four meet the married couple who stretched, shrank, and somehow still had time for dinner together. Superstretch and Microwoman was Hanna-Barbera's attempt to add domestic bliss to the superhero genre, and the result was as charming as it was bizarre. Chris and Christy Cross looked like normal suburban sweethearts until crime struck. Then Chris would stretch across skyscrapers like human rubber, while Christy shrank to microscopic size to sneak into villain lairs. Their golden retriever even joined in wagging its tail, while the city crumbled around them. The show's tone swung wildly between sitcom and superhero parody. One moment the couple was saving the world. The next they were arguing about whose turn it was to do laundry. Their teamwork was both adorable and chaotic. He'd reach for a bomb across town, she'd crawl into its wiring, and somehow they'd blow up the bad guy's base without losing a beat. It didn't last long, but Superstretch and Microwoman left a mark as one of the first superhero couples on TV. They proved marriage could survive anything, even mutant villains, shrinking rays, and the 70s obsession with matching jumpsuits. Number 5. Hokey Wolf and Ding-a-Ling Redux, Yogi's Ark, Lark, Galaxy Goof-Ups, 1972 to 1978. Hokey Wolf was originally a Yogi Bear clone, a smooth-talking con artist wolf with a tiny sidekick named Ding-a-Ling. But when the 70s hit, Hanna-Barbera resurrected them and decided they needed space suits. Thus began one of the strangest second acts in cartoon history. In Yogi's Ark, Lark, and Galaxy Goof-Ups, the once earthbound tricksters became cosmic travelers, spreading eco-friendly messages while floating through outer space. They went from hustling picnics to lecturing aliens about pollution recycling and kindness. It was Saturday morning environmentalism wrapped in absurdity. Hokey still tried to scam everyone, but now his grifts had educational value. Ding-a-Ling, ever the loyal sidekick, followed along with wide-eyed optimism and occasional jetpack malfunctions. Together they were proof that you could repurpose any cartoon character for the decade's new moral wave. The strangest part? It kind of worked. Kids didn't question how a wolf and his apprentice were flying through galaxies in bell-bottoms. They just laughed and learned about saving trees. Hokey Wolf's 70s comeback might not have made sense, but it showed that even con artists can go green. Number 4. Presto, the Magician Mouse, the Tom and Jerry comedy show, 1975. By the mid-70s, Tom and Jerry had gone through so many reboots they were practically genre-hopping. But none were stranger than the introduction of Presto, a tiny magician mouse who somehow managed to be even more chaotic than Jerry himself. Presto wore a magician's cape, carried a wand twice his size, and spoke in a squeaky voice that sounded like a circus announcer trapped in a helium balloon. His spells almost never worked the way he intended. He'd try to make Tom disappear, and instead turn him into an elephant, a fire hydrant, or worse, 2 Toms. Every episode featuring Presto felt like watching slapstick sorcery gone wrong. He'd whip out his wand, shout a nonsensical rhyme, and wait for disaster to strike. The best part was that he never learned his lesson. No matter how many explosions or magic mishaps followed, Presto just dusted himself off and declared, "Ta-da!" as if chaos was part of the act. The animators clearly had fun with him. His failed spells gave them an excuse for the wildest visual gags of the decade, lava fountains, floating pianos, you name it. Presto may not have been smart, but he was unforgettable, the ultimate reminder that sometimes magic works best when it doesn't work at all. Number 3. Fangface, 1978. What if Scooby-Doo had a werewolf who turned into a monster every time he saw the moon and back again when he saw a picture of the sun? That's Fangface, the teenage werewolf detective, whose transformations were as unpredictable as the show's logic. The setup was wild. 4 mystery-solving teens, Biff Kim Pugsy and Sherman Fangs Fangsworth, traveled the country solving supernatural crimes. The catch? Whenever the moon came out, mild-mannered, Fangs became Fangface, a bumbling, hairy whirlwind who usually wrecked more than he rescued. The gang had to carry around a photo of the sun just to turn him back to normal. Fangface's voice was a scratchy growl somewhere between a caveman and a toddler, and his appetite was as wild as his temper. One minute he was chasing villains, the next he was chewing car tires or tree trunks for snacks. Despite its ridiculous premise, the show was a hit. It even spun off Fangface and Fangpuss because apparently one cartoon werewolf wasn't enough. What made Fangface so memorable was his heart. Beneath all the fur and foolishness, he genuinely wanted to help. He just needed better timing and fewer full moons. Number 2. Devlin, 1974. If Evel Knievel had been an animated life coach, you'd get Devlin. This show followed Ernie Devlin, a motorcycle stuntman who traveled the country performing dangerous jumps by day and teaching moral lessons by night. Every episode featured at least 1 broken bones worth of stunts and a heartfelt speech about honesty, courage, or the importance of wearing a helmet. Devlin looked like a hero from a gas station poster, white jumpsuit, red stripes, and perfectly feathered hair. His crew included his kid sister Todd and his mechanic buddy Barney, who somehow repaired a totaled bike in every episode. The real stunt? Their optimism. No matter how many crashes or setbacks they faced, they always ended with a freeze-frame smile and a life lesson. The show was Hanna-Barbera's attempt to cash in on stuntman mania while keeping things wholesome. The result was part action, part after-school special. Devlin's big jumps were animated with such intensity that kids held their breath even when physics clearly checked out 5 seconds in. It may sound corny today, but Devlin had real heart. Beneath the jumps and explosions was a message the 70s loved: be brave, be good, and always land on your wheels. Number 1. Galtar, Galtar and the Golden Lance, 1979. Before He-Man made barbarian heroes cool, Hanna-Barbera tried their hand at sword and sorcery with Galtar and the Golden Lance. The pilot aired in 1979 introduced Galtar, a teenage warrior, armed with a glowing lance, a pet horse that could apparently teleport, and a vocabulary straight out of a fantasy dictionary. The world of Galtar was pure chaos, evil warlords floating castles, and enough laser beams to power a disco. Every scene looked like it was drawn by someone who'd watched Conan the Barbarian and Star Wars back to back. Galtar himself was overly serious, delivering speeches about honor, while swinging a weapon that looked suspiciously like 2 neon flashlights glued together. His companions Princess Golita and her brother Zorn were equally intense battling villains who laughed like they were paid by the cackle. The pilot never turned into a full series until the mid-80s, but it became a cult classic thanks to its blend of high fantasy and unintentional comedy. Galtar's shining lance could slice through steel, but not logic, making him the perfect closing act for this list. Because if the 70s taught us anything, it's that every weird idea deserved a shot, and sometimes even the wildest heroes can glow in the dark. So there you have it. The second wave of weirdness that proves the 70s had no creative breaks. Robots, blobs, talking dogs, stretchy couples, and moralizing stuntmen, each one a snapshot of when imagination ran free and sanity took a vacation. Which of these oddballs did you actually remember? And which one unlocked a memory you didn't know you had? Drop your pick in the comments, hit subscribe, and let's keep digging through cartoon history's strangest vault.